Imagine this. You wake up one day and the world feels heavier than it did the night before. The air is thick with an unspoken dread, and the weight of your past mistakes, your regrets, your unfulfilled dreams presses down on your chest like an invisible hand. You try to shake it off, to distract yourself with the usual routines, coffee, work, scrolling through your phone. But the feeling lingers. It's as if the universe itself is whispering a question you've been avoiding your entire life. What if your pain isn't a curse but a key? What if the very thing you've been running from, the heartbreak, the failure, the loneliness, is the raw material for your greatest transformation? What if the moments that shattered you were not the end of your story, but the beginning of a deeper, more authentic one? This is the unsettling paradox at the heart of human existence. Pain, in all its forms, is universal. It is the one experience that binds us all, yet it is also the one we fear the most. We spend our lives building walls to keep it out, numbing ourselves with distractions, chasing fleeting pleasures to avoid its sting. But what if, in doing so, we are missing the point entirely? What if pain is not the enemy, but the teacher? Consider this. Every great story of human triumph is rooted in suffering. The artist who creates a masterpiece often does so from a place of deep emotional turmoil. The leader who inspires millions has usually faced unimaginable adversity. Even the philosopher who unlocks the secrets of existence does so by wrestling with the darkest questions of life. Pain, it seems, is not just an obstacle. It is the forge in which greatness is shaped. But here's the catch. Most of us never learn to wield this forge. Instead, we let it consume us. We become trapped in cycles of resentment, self-pity, and despair, convinced that our pain defines us. We tell ourselves stories about how life has been unfair, how we've been wronged, how we're destined to suffer. And in doing so, we give our pain power over us. What if there's another way? What if, instead of running from your pain, you could turn it into power? What if the very thing you've been trying to escape could become the source of your strength, your wisdom, your purpose? This is not just a theoretical question, it's a deeply personal one. Think about your own life for a moment. What are the moments that hurt the most? The loss that still haunts you, the failure that still makes you cringe, the fear that keeps you up at night. Now imagine if, instead of burying those experiences, you could transform them. Imagine if you could take the raw, jagged edges of your pain and shape them into something beautiful, something meaningful, something uniquely yours. This is the art of turning pain into power. It is not about denying your suffering or pretending it doesn't exist. It is about confronting it head-on, understanding its roots, and using it as fuel for your growth. It is about rewriting the story you tell yourself, not as a victim, but as a creator. But how? How do you take something as overwhelming as pain and turn it into something as empowering as strength? How do you move from being crushed by your circumstances to rising above them? The answer lies in a radical shift in perspective, one that challenges everything you've been taught about pain, success, and the human condition. It requires you to look at your suffering not as a punishment, but as a catalyst. It demands that you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this trying to teach me?" This is not an easy path. It will require courage, honesty, and a willingness to face the parts of yourself you've been avoiding. But the rewards are profound, because when you learn to turn your pain into power, you unlock a level of resilience, creativity, and purpose that most people never even dream of. So let's begin. Let's dive into the hidden forces that keep us trapped in cycles of suffering and explore how to break free. Let's uncover the psychological and philosophical roots of pain and discover how to transform it into a source of strength. And let's confront the ultimate truth, that the power to change your life has been within you all along, hidden in the very thing you've been trying to escape. The journey starts now. Are you ready? To understand how to turn pain into power, we must first confront the hidden problem. Why do we suffer so deeply, and why do we struggle to move beyond it? The answer lies not just in the events that cause us pain, but in the way we relate to those events, our thoughts, our beliefs, and the stories we tell ourselves. At its core, pain is a signal. It is the mind's way of alerting us that something is wrong, that something needs to change. But here's the paradox. While pain is a natural and inevitable part of life, our resistance to it often amplifies our suffering. We fight against it, deny it, or try to numb it, and in doing so, we give it more power over us. This resistance is rooted in a fundamental misunderstanding of pain's role in our lives. From a young age, we are taught to avoid pain at all costs. We are told that happiness is the absence of suffering, that success means never failing, and that strength means never showing weakness. But this mindset is not only unrealistic, it is deeply flawed. Carl Jung, the pioneering psychologist, understood this better than most. He believed that pain is not something to be avoided, but something to be integrated. There is no coming to consciousness without pain, he wrote. People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. Jung's concept of the shadow, the parts of ourselves we reject or deny, offers a powerful lens through which to view our suffering. When we refuse to confront our pain, it doesn't disappear. It goes underground, festering in the shadows of our psyche. It manifests as anxiety, depression, addiction, or self-sabotage, silently shaping our lives in ways we don't even realize. Friedrich Nietzsche, a philosopher who famously declared, "What does not kill me makes me stronger," took this idea even further. He saw pain as a necessary ingredient for growth, a force that strips away our illusions and forces us to confront the truth about ourselves. "You must have chaos within you to give birth to a dancing star," he wrote. Nietzsche's philosophy challenges us to embrace suffering not as a punishment but as a crucible, a place where we are tested, refined, and ultimately transformed. But why is this so difficult? Why do we resist pain, even when we know it has the potential to make us stronger? The answer lies in the way our brains are wired. Neurologically, pain activates the same regions of the brain as physical injury, triggering a fight or flight response. This primal reaction served our ancestors well in life or death situations, but in the modern world, it often does more harm than good. When we perceive emotional pain as a threat, we instinctively try to escape it through distraction, denial, or self-medication. This instinct is compounded by societal conditioning. We live in a culture that glorifies comfort and convenience, that tells us we should always be happy, productive, and in control. Social media exacerbates this by presenting curated versions of reality, where everyone else seems to be living their best life while we struggle in silence. The result is a pervasive sense of shame around our pain, a belief that we are somehow broken or inadequate for feeling it. But the truth is, pain is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of humanity. Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, understood this better than anyone. In his seminal work, Man's Search for Meaning, Frankl wrote about his experiences in Nazi concentration camps, where he witnessed the extremes of human suffering. Yet even in the face of unimaginable horror, he found that those who were able to find meaning in their pain were more likely to survive. When we are no longer able to change a situation, he wrote, we are challenged to change ourselves. This is the hidden problem. Our resistance to pain is not just a personal struggle, it is a cultural and psychological one. We have been taught to see pain as the enemy rather than as a teacher. We have been conditioned to avoid it rather than to learn from it. And in doing so, we have cut ourselves off from one of the most powerful sources of growth and transformation available to us. But what if we could change this? What if we could learn to see pain not as something to be feared, but as something to be embraced? What if we could stop running from our suffering and start using it as a tool for self-discovery and empowerment? The journey begins with understanding the roots of our resistance, the psychological and philosophical forces that keep us trapped in cycles of suffering. It requires us to confront the stories we tell ourselves about pain, to question the societal narratives that shape our perceptions, and to explore the deeper truths that lie beneath the surface of our suffering. This is not an easy task. It demands courage, curiosity, and a willingness to face the parts of ourselves we've been avoiding. But the rewards are profound. Because when we stop running from our pain, we begin to unlock its hidden potential. We start to see it not as a curse, but as a catalyst, a force that can propel us toward greater clarity, resilience, and purpose. And so we turn to the next question. What are the unseen consequences of our resistance to pain? How does it shape our lives, our relationships, and our sense of self? And most importantly, how can we break free from its grip? The resistance to pain doesn't just leave us stuck in suffering. It silently shapes every aspect of our lives, often in ways we don't even realize. Like an invisible current beneath the surface of a calm lake, it pulls us in directions we didn't choose, influencing our decisions, our relationships, and our sense of self. To understand how to turn pain into power, we must first confront the unseen consequences of our avoidance. One of the most insidious effects of resisting pain is the way it distorts our perception of reality. Cognitive biases, those mental shortcuts our brains use to make sense of the world, are heavily influenced by our emotional state. When we're in pain, our brains tend to focus on the negative, amplifying our suffering and blinding us to potential solutions. This phenomenon, known as negative bias, keeps us trapped in a cycle of rumination and despair. We replay our failures, our heartbreaks, our regrets over and over again, as if stuck in a mental loop, but it doesn't stop there. Our resistance to pain also shapes our behavior in profound ways. Consider the rise of addiction in modern society. Whether it's substance abuse, compulsive shopping, or endless scrolling on social media, addiction is often a coping mechanism, a way to numb the pain we're unwilling to face. Gabor Mate, a renowned expert on addiction, argues that addiction is not a disease, but a response to suffering. The question is not why the addiction, he says, but why the pain. When we refuse to confront our pain, we seek relief in external sources, creating a vicious cycle of dependency and disconnection. This disconnection extends to our relationships as well. Pain, when left unprocessed, creates emotional barriers between us and others. We build walls to protect ourselves from further hurt, but in doing so, we also shut out love, intimacy, and connection. Jean-Paul Sartre, the existentialist philosopher, famously wrote, "Hell is other people." But what he meant was not that others are inherently toxic, but that our unresolved pain distorts our interactions with them. We project our insecurities, our fears, and our unmet needs onto those around us, turning relationships into battlegrounds rather than sources of support. On a societal level, the collective resistance to pain has far-reaching consequences. Aldous Huxley, in his dystopian novel Brave New World, envisioned a society where pain was eradicated through technology and conditioning. But this utopia came at a cost: the loss of individuality, creativity, and meaning. Huxley's warning is eerily relevant today. In our quest for comfort and convenience, we've created a culture that prioritizes distraction over depth, instant gratification over lasting fulfillment. We've traded the richness of human experience for the shallow comforts of modern life. But perhaps the most devastating consequence of resisting pain is the way it erodes our sense of self. Pain, when unprocessed, becomes a part of our identity. We define ourselves by our suffering, seeing ourselves as victims rather than creators of our own lives. This mindset, known as learned helplessness, leaves us feeling powerless and trapped. We believe that change is impossible, that we are doomed to repeat the same patterns forever. This is the trap of pain avoidance. It doesn't just keep us stuck in suffering, it robs us of our agency, our creativity, and our potential. It blinds us to the possibilities that lie beyond our pain, convincing us that the only way to survive is to stay small, stay safe, stay numb. But what if there's another way? What if, instead of letting pain define us, we could use it to redefine ourselves? What if the very thing we've been running from could become the key to our liberation? The first step is to recognize the unseen consequences of our resistance, to see how our avoidance of pain shapes our thoughts, our behaviors, and our relationships. To understand that every time we numb ourselves, every time we distract ourselves, every time we build another wall, we are not protecting ourselves. We are imprisoning ourselves. The second step is to confront the pain itself, not to run from it, not to numb it, but to face it head on. This is where the real work begins. It requires courage, vulnerability, and a willingness to sit with discomfort. But it is also where the transformation happens. Because when we stop running from our pain, we begin to reclaim our power. And so we turn to the next question. How do we break free from the grip of pain avoidance? How do we move from being crushed by our circumstances to rising above them? How do we turn our pain into power? Breaking free from the grip of pain avoidance is not a passive process. It is an act of rebellion. It requires a radical shift in perspective, a willingness to challenge the stories we've been telling ourselves, and the courage to step into the unknown. This rebellion is not against the pain itself, but against the way we've been conditioned to respond to it. It is a reclaiming of our agency, our creativity, and our power. The first step in this rebellion is to stop running. This may sound simple, but it is anything but easy. For most of us, the instinct to avoid pain is deeply ingrained. We've spent years, even decades, building walls, creating distractions, and numbing ourselves to the discomfort of our emotions. To stop running means to face the pain head-on, to sit with it, to listen to what it has to say. This is where the work of Carl Jung becomes invaluable. Jung believed that the path to wholeness lies in integrating the shadow, parts of ourselves we've rejected or denied. Until you make the unconscious conscious, he wrote, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. To turn pain into power, we must first bring it into the light. We must confront the stories we've been telling ourselves about. Our suffering, the narratives of victimhood, inadequacy, and helplessness, and question their validity. One powerful tool for this process is shadow work. This involves exploring the darker aspects of our psyche, the fears, insecurities, and traumas we've been avoiding. Shadow work is not about wallowing in pain or indulging in self-pity. It is about understanding the root causes of our suffering and reclaiming the energy we've been using to suppress it. By facing our shadow, we begin to see that our pain is not a punishment, but a teacher. It is showing us where we need to grow, where we need to heal, where we need to change. But shadow work is only the beginning. To truly turn pain into power, we must also shift our relationship with suffering itself. This is where the philosophy of Friedrich Nietzsche offers profound insights. Nietzsche saw suffering as a necessary part of the human experience, a force that strips away our illusions and forces us to confront the truth about ourselves. He who has a why to live can bear almost any how, he wrote. By finding meaning in our pain, we transform it from a source of despair into a source of strength. Viktor Frankl, who survived the horrors of the Holocaust, echoed this idea in his concept of logotherapy. Frankl believed that meaning is the primary motivator in human life, and that even in the most dire circumstances, we have the power to choose our response. "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing," he wrote, "the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. By reframing our pain as an opportunity for growth, we reclaim our agency and begin to see ourselves not as victims, but as creators of our own lives." This shift in perspective is not just theoretical, it is deeply practical. It requires us to take concrete steps toward healing and transformation. One such step is the practice of radical acceptance. This involves acknowledging our pain without judgment, without resistance, without trying to change it. Radical acceptance is not about resignation. It is about recognizing reality as it is, rather than as we wish it to be. By accepting our pain, we take away its power to control us. Another powerful tool is reframing. This involves changing the way we think about our suffering, seeing it not as a curse, but as a catalyst. For example, instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" we can ask, "What is this trying to teach me?" Instead of seeing failure as a reflection of our worth, we can see it as an opportunity to learn and grow. Reframing allows us to shift from a mindset of victimhood to one of empowerment. But perhaps the most important step in this rebellion is to take action. Pain, when left unprocessed, keeps us stuck in the past. But when we use it as fuel for change, it propels us forward. This might mean setting boundaries in toxic relationships, pursuing a passion we've been too afraid to chase, or simply taking small, consistent steps toward a healthier, more fulfilling life. Action is the antidote to helplessness, the proof that we are not defined by our pain, but by how we respond to it. This rebellion is not a one-time event. It is an ongoing process. It requires us to continually confront our fears, challenge our assumptions, and take responsibility for our lives. But the rewards are profound. By turning pain into power, we unlock a level of resilience, creativity, and purpose that most people never even dream of. And so, we turn to the final question. What is the ultimate truth about pain and power? What is the deepest realization that can transform not just how we see our suffering, but how we see ourselves and the world? The ultimate truth about pain and power is this. Pain is not the opposite of strength, it is its birthplace. The moments that break us are also the moments that make us. The suffering we try so hard to avoid is the very thing that holds the key to our transformation. This realization is not just a philosophical insight. It is a lived experience, a truth that has been echoed by the greatest minds in history and proven by the lives of those who have turned their deepest wounds into their greatest strengths. Consider the story of Fyodor Dostoevsky, the Russian novelist who endured years of imprisonment and exile. It was in the depths of his suffering that he wrote some of his most profound works, exploring the complexities of human nature and the redemptive power of pain. Pain and suffering are always inevitable for a large intelligence and a deep heart, he wrote. Dostoevsky's life is a testament to the idea that pain, when embraced, can become a source of creativity, wisdom, and transcendence. Or take the example of Viktor Frankl, who found meaning in the unimaginable horrors of the Holocaust. Frankl's suffering did not destroy him. It revealed to him the indomitable power of the human spirit. When we are no longer able to change a situation, he wrote, we are challenged to change ourselves. This is the ultimate truth. Pain is not just something to be endured, it is something to be transformed. But how do we make this transformation? How do we move from seeing pain as a curse to seeing it as a gift? The answer lies in a radical shift, in perspective, one that redefines not just how we see our suffering, but how we see ourselves. The first step in this shift is to recognize that pain is not personal. It is not a punishment, not a sign of failure, not a reflection of our worth. Pain is a universal experience, a part of the human condition. It is not something that happens to us, but something that happens for us. It is a call to growth, a demand for change, an invitation to become more than we were before. This realization is liberating. It allows us to stop blaming ourselves for our suffering and start taking responsibility for our healing. It shifts our focus from "why is this happening to me?" to "what is this trying to teach me?" It transforms pain from a source of despair into a source of meaning. The second step is to embrace the paradox of pain. It is both a destroyer and a creator. It shatters our illusions, breaks down our defenses, and forces us to confront the truth about ourselves. But in doing so, it also clears the way for something new to emerge. Like a forest fire that destroys the old growth to make room for new. Pain clears away the debris of our past and creates space for transformation. This is where the concept of post-traumatic growth comes into play. Psychologists have found that many people who experience profound suffering, whether from illness, loss, or trauma, emerge from it with a greater sense of purpose, deeper relationships, and a renewed appreciation for life. This is not to say that pain is desirable or that suffering is necessary for growth, but it is to say that growth is possible, even in the face of the greatest adversity. The final step in this shift is to recognize that the power to transform pain lies within us. We are not passive victims of our circumstances. We are active participants in our own lives. We have the power to choose how we respond to our suffering, to find meaning in our pain, and to use it as a catalyst for change. This is the ultimate truth. Pain is not the end of the story. It is the beginning. It is the raw material from which we can create a life of meaning, purpose, and power. It is the forge in which our greatest selves are shaped. And so, as we come to the end of this journey, let us leave you with this final thought. The next time you find yourself in pain, don't run from it, don't numb it, don't let it define you. Instead, face it, embrace it, transform it. Because within your pain lies the seed of your power, and within your power lies the possibility of a life that is not just endured but truly lived. The choice is yours. What will you do with your pain?